They say beauty fades with time. But what if we've been looking at attraction the wrong way? What if the most magnetic men aren't the loudest, the flashiest, or the youngest, but the ones who walk into a room with quiet certainty and leave behind a feeling no one forgets? Let me ask you something. Have you ever seen an older man, maybe in his 50s or 60s, who doesn't say much, but when he does, people listen? He's not the center of attention. He doesn't try to be, but somehow his presence holds weight. His gaze is steady, his movements calm, and his silence, it's not emptiness, it's assurance. This isn't just about style or grooming or posture. It's about something much deeper, a kind of inner clarity that only comes with age and intention. You see, real attraction isn't built on chasing. It's built on becoming. Not the man who performs, but the man who simply is. Not the man who clings to youth, but the one who embodies wisdom, stillness, and presence. The timeless appeal of a man at peace with himself. In today's world, where noise is everywhere and attention is currency, there's something undeniably powerful about the man who no longer needs either, who has faced himself, made peace with time, and shows up not to impress, but to express who he truly is. And that is where real attraction begins. This story is for the man who wants to age not with fear, but with grace. Not with resistance, but with depth. Not by clinging to what was, but by stepping fully into who he's become. So whether you're 42 or 67, still building or already seasoned, these aren't tricks. They're truths. They're principles that don't just catch attention, but keep it. Let's explore together the 7 timeless traits that make older men deeply, quietly, irresistibly attractive. Not by trying to be someone else, but by finally becoming more of yourself. There's a kind of confidence that doesn't make noise. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't chase approval. And it certainly doesn't need to prove anything. It's the kind that settles into a room like it belongs there. This is the confidence of a man who has faced life, not just the triumphs, but the setbacks too. He's lost things. He's rebuilt. He's learned the hard way that real strength isn't about having all the answers. It's about being grounded when you don't. You can see it in the way he listens. He doesn't interrupt. He doesn't fill silences with nervous chatter. He lets the moment breathe. That stillness, it's not awkward. It's magnetic. Women notice that. People notice that. Because in a world of over-explaining and overcompensating, stillness feels like safety. Years ago, I had a client, a 54-year-old architect, who used to feel invisible in social settings. He wasn't loud, he wasn't flashy, and for most of his life, he believed that meant he had nothing to offer in a room full of people. But one day, he stopped trying to perform. He stopped rehearsing his lines before walking into a conversation, and something shifted. At a dinner party, he barely spoke, but when he did, every head turned. Afterward, a woman pulled him aside and said, "You made the room feel slower, calmer, safer, before you even said a word." That's presence, not performance. Presence, it's the look in your eye that says, "I'm not here to prove anything. I'm here because I belong." And that's what people, especially women, respond to. It's not about being the loudest voice in the room. It's about being the one they feel calm around, trusted around. Confidence like that doesn't come from pretending. It comes from knowing, truly knowing your worth. Not based on validation, but based on who you've become through every scar, lesson, and quiet victory. So if you've ever felt like being soft-spoken or calm makes you less attractive, understand this. Still waters aren't empty. They're deep. And sometimes the man who says the least leaves the deepest impression. Style is not about trends. It's not about dressing like you're still in your 20s or mimicking what's popular this season. In fact, nothing undermines maturity faster than trying too hard to appear young. Real style, the kind that turns heads and holds respect, is a quiet extension of who you are. There comes a moment in every man's life when he stops asking, "What's trending?" and starts asking, "What reflects who I've become?" That shift is everything. Because when a man wears clothes that align with his identity, he no longer needs approval. He becomes his own standard. Women notice this, not just the clothes, but the message behind them. A perfectly fitted blazer, a crisp shirt, clean shoes. They don't shout, but they whisper something powerful. This man knows who he is. There's nothing louder than subtlety done right. And it's not just about clothing. It's about grooming, about presence, about discipline. A well-groomed beard, a thoughtful haircut, skin that shows care. These aren't about vanity, they're about self-respect. A man who takes care of himself physically often takes care of other things too. His emotions, his time, his commitments. That consistency is attractive. It builds trust without needing to say a word. Years fade trends, but simplicity, refined, consistent simplicity, never goes out of style. And when a man embraces timeless staples instead of chasing youthful fads, he sends a signal of quiet leadership. He's not trying to be someone else. He's just expressing who he's always been, more clearly. In a world obsessed with performance, a man who simply shows up, aligned with his values, becomes rare. And rare becomes magnetic. So no, you don't need to dress like a runway model. You need to dress like a man who respects himself. And when your appearance reflects discipline, taste, and quiet strength, people don't just see your clothes. They feel your energy. And in the end, that's what style is really about. Not decoration, but declaration. There's something quietly powerful about a man who moves with ease. Not because he's trying to show off his body, but because his body reflects the kind of care that comes from self-respect, not self-obsession. As we age, the conversation around health shifts. It stops being about chasing perfection and starts being about preservation, presence, and vitality. You don't need to look like a professional athlete. You need to look like a man who respects the vessel he lives in. That difference is everything. Posture, stillness, the way you sit without collapsing into the chair, the way you walk into a room without rushing. These are subtle cues, but they speak volumes. They say, I'm still here, I'm still strong, and I still choose to show up fully. Women notice it more than you think. Not because they expect you to be flawless, but because presence is magnetic, and presence is physical as much as emotional. It's in how you carry your age, just how you move through space, how you treat your own body like something worth protecting. But here's the mistake many men make. They turn physical care into obsession. They chase diets, they punish themselves at the gym, they panic at every wrinkle or sag. And the irony is, the more they obsess, the more insecurity they reveal. True vitality doesn't shout. It doesn't scream for attention. It radiates, because it comes from a place of balance, not anxiety, not ego, but stewardship. Think about the difference between a man who's trying to look strong and a man who is strong simply because he lives with discipline. One is chasing something, the other is expressing something. That expression is what women are drawn to. The man who can lift a suitcase without effort, who doesn't huff walking upstairs, who has energy but not urgency, movement but not mania. He signals stability, endurance, the ability to handle what life throws at him, physically and otherwise. And in a world where so many people are burning out trying to prove their worth, there's something deeply attractive about a man who invests in his body, not for applause, but for alignment. So no, you don't need six-pack abs. You need to be awake in your own body, at ease, capable. That's what health looks like when it's guided by wisdom, not fear. And that's what makes you attractive without ever taking off your shirt. Before you say a single word, you've already said something, not with your clothes, not with your posture, but with something far more subtle, your scent. It's one of the most overlooked aspects of presence and one of the most powerful. Smell is tied directly to memory and emotion. It bypasses logic and sinks straight into the subconscious. One breath and someone can be transported, not just to a place or a time, but to a feeling. That's why a man who chooses a signature scent carefully doesn't just smell good. He becomes unforgettable. It's not about dousing yourself in cologne or picking the most expensive fragrance. It's about intention, subtlety, alignment. The right scent lingers, not in an overpowering way, but in a way that makes someone pause and wonder, who was that? Think of it like an invisible calling card, woody notes like sandalwood or cedar, hints of spice, smoke, or clean musk. These are not loud scents, but they carry weight. They say, I know who I am. Women feel this on a level they can't always explain. A distinct, well-chosen fragrance becomes part of how they remember you. It's the whisper that stays when you've already left the room. It tells her you pay attention to detail, to care, to how your presence affects others. It's the difference between walking past someone and staying with them long after you're gone. And here's the deeper truth. Scent is personal. It works best when it fits you, when it doesn't mask, but enhances. So take the time to find something that feels right. Test it on your skin. Let it evolve with your body. Choose subtle over showy. Let the fragrance rise only when someone's close enough to deserve it. Because the man who smells good without trying, he's not trying to impress. He's trying to remember who he is and letting others remember too. In a world of visual noise and digital distraction, scent is intimate, timeless, undeniably human. And the man who masters it creates a presence that lingers, quietly, powerfully in the mind and heart of everyone he meets. Some men speak and people hear them. Others speak and people listen. The difference? Depth. As a man ages, something shifts. Looks fade, flash loses its shine. But the power of a sharp mind, the ability to hold a meaningful conversation, to surprise someone with thoughtfulness, to see beyond the surface becomes the most compelling trait of all. Women are drawn to this not because it's performative, but because it feels real. Because let's be honest, in a world full of noise, a man who can think clearly, speak intentionally, and listen deeply is rare. It's not about quoting philosophers or dominating discussions. It's about bringing presence into every exchange. Being the kind of man who doesn't just talk to fill the air, but speaks with purpose and listens with care. Picture this. You're on a walk with someone. The conversation drifts from laughter over childhood memories to a sudden quiet moment about loss. You don't rush to fix it. You don't change the subject. You hold the silence, then say something true, simple, grounded. That's what makes you unforgettable. Not facts, not flashy stories, but the way you make someone feel seen, because that's what emotional depth sounds like in conversation. Curiosity, restraint, openness, the willingness to sit with someone's thoughts without needing to outshine them. And that depth, it's built slowly, by reading, reflecting, making mistakes, asking hard questions, and never assuming you've arrived. Women sense this. They feel it when you offer a new perspective, not to argue, but to explore. When you ask better questions than most men offer answers. It's not arrogance, it's wisdom paired with humility. That kind of energy creates safety. And safety creates space for intimacy, the kind that doesn't just touch the body, but moves the heart and mind. So sharpen your mind, not to impress, but to connect. Because when you can carry both light conversation and profound reflection, when you can talk about joy, pain, ideas, and silence with equal ease, you become the man people want to talk to. Not because you're the loudest, but because you're the one who sees them and helps them see more of themselves. There's a quiet dignity in a man who doesn't fear aging. He doesn't fight it with denial. He doesn't cover it up with trendy clothes, dyed hair, or desperate attempts to cling to a fading image of youth. Instead, he lets the years speak for him, and what they say is powerful. Lines on his face, they tell a story of laughter, of sorrow, of resilience. Silver in his hair, it's not a flaw, it's a signal. This man has lived, and more importantly, he's learned. In a culture obsessed with staying young, aging with grace becomes an act of rebellion and a mark of deep confidence. Because here's the truth, pretending to be younger doesn't make you more attractive. It makes you look like you're running from something. But when a man stands in his age without apology, he radiates something far stronger than beauty. He radiates security. Women feel that. They're not looking for someone stuck in the past, still proving himself. They're looking for someone who's present, whole, grounded, someone who stopped chasing and started being. That shift changes everything. It means you no longer fear being overlooked. You're not playing the comparison game. You've come to understand that your value doesn't lie in how tight your skin is, but in how steady your spirit is. It doesn't mean letting yourself go. It means caring from a place of respect, not desperation. You exercise not to reverse time, but to honor your body. You groom not to compete with younger men, but to stay aligned with who you are. That balance between acceptance and intention is rare, and rare is magnetic, because it's not just about how you look, it's about the energy you carry. The man who's aged well walks into a room differently, not with hunger, but with presence, not needing attention, but offering calm. He's not trying to be 25, he's trying to be the best version of 55. And that clarity, that quiet self-respect, it's more compelling than any youthful illusion. So stop trying to rewind the clock. Live forward, fully, authentically. Let your age be your advantage, the evidence that you've endured, evolved, and emerged not weaker, but wiser. Because the man who embraces his age isn't fading. He's just beginning to stand in his real strength. Mystery is not about being distant. It's about being whole and not needing to reveal every corner of yourself to feel connected. There's a kind of man who doesn't overshare. He doesn't rush to tell his life story on the first conversation. He doesn't post every thought online or explain every emotion the moment he feels it. And yet, people are drawn to him. Not because he's cold, but because there's depth. You sense there's more beneath the surface, a history, a soul, a rich inner world that doesn't need validation to exist. That's the kind of mystery that captivates. It's not a game, it's not manipulation, it's integrity, living so fully and so intentionally that others naturally lean in, curious to know more. Women especially feel this, because while charm might catch their eye, mystery holds their attention. The quiet man who listens more than he speaks, who chooses his words carefully, who leaves space in the conversation, not because he's unsure, but because he's secure. He doesn't flood the moment with noise. He lets it breathe. And in that space, something rare happens. She begins to feel seen, not because he's putting on a show, but because he's not trying to steal the spotlight. He's just there, present, aware, self-contained. That's what emotional reserve looks like in its strongest form. It says, I don't need to prove my value, I've already lived it. And when he chooses to open up, not too fast, not too soon, it means something. It's not performative, it's intentional. And it builds trust layer by layer. Because mystery isn't about withholding, it's about honoring the journey of revealing. A slow, unfolding connection, a mutual curiosity, a dynamic built not on oversharing, but on discovery. And that kind of connection lasts, because it isn't built on novelty, it's built on depth. So don't be afraid to keep some parts of yourself sacred, your past, your fears, your dreams. Not everyone needs access to everything. Let people earn the deeper pages of your story, because the man who values his own depth becomes the one others long to explore. And in a world starving for real connection, the quiet man with rich substance becomes not just attractive, but unforgettable. Attraction was never meant to be a race. It is a resonance, a quiet meeting point between who you are and what the world feels when you walk through it. If these 7 traits share one thread, it is presence. The older you become, the clearer this truth stands. Presence is not granted by age alone. It is earned through aligned choices, daily disciplines, unflinching honesty, and the courage to let go of what no longer serves you. Confidence rooted in lived experience, style that echoes inner clarity, a body cared for without vanity, a scent that lingers like a memory of steadiness, a mind sharpened by curiosity and humility, grace that turns every gray hair into a story of survival, mystery that protects the sacred spaces of your soul. Together they form a tapestry of quiet strength. You do not have to master them overnight. You simply practice showing up again and again in alignment with what matters most. One deliberate breath, one thoughtful word, one calm decision at a time. Because the most magnetic men are not chasing anyone's gaze. They are facing their own reflection with respect. They stand unhurried in rooms filled with noise and feel no need to shout. Their power is the steady pulse beneath the surface, the invitation to safety, the promise of depth. If you choose this path, the world will notice. Not through applause, but through subtler signs, conversations that linger, eyes that soften when they meet yours, silence that feels like trust instead of tension. These are the true markers of mature attraction. So age forward with intention. Walk tall. Speak when the moment asks for truth. Let your clothes, your posture, your scent, and your stories all whisper the same message. I respect the life I have built, and I welcome those who value depth over spectacle. Live that message long enough, and you will discover something extraordinary. You will realize that becoming attractive was never the final goal. Becoming whole was. And wholeness, once embodied, is what draws the world closer, quietly, effortlessly, and for as long as you keep showing up as the most authentic version of who you already are.